I believe I believe if that happens, the host is able to mute the person because they may have stepped away.
Yeah, I can't tell. Every microphone seems to be actually muted, so I'm a little bit puzzled in the moment. Where's Eric when you need him?
Eric is not muted, so I think that maybe that's what the noise was too. So maybe someone wants to mute Eric for him.
I just muted Eric.
No, sorry, it wasn't me, but I was double muted. Can you hear me?
Yes. We can hear you, but we're still
Okay,
hearing.
I'm going to try this. Let's try muting everybody, and then we'll just unmute Jim and River. Okay? Here we go. I'm muting everybody.
So does this seem an improvement?
No, it's really weird. It's like we're eavesdropping on someone's phone call.
It might be Jory, or no?
I just unmuted myself to say I wasn't hearing anything, and then I heard something. So.
Now I'm hearing it.
It's almost like it's bleeding over from another Zoom call. Because I hear them talking about breaking people up into triads. So
I'm wondering, are you streaming on a different, okay, so I'm sorry, I'm going to ask this. Are you streaming in another window on YouTube or something on your computer?
Could be. Let me just make sure that I'm going to close everything in my Firefox and see.
I'm looking at the participant list, and when I look at the participant list, I can see where the noise is coming from. And there's no noise coming in from any of the other microphones as far as I can tell.
Okay. Can you disconnect them somehow?
Jim, can you mute yourself for a second?
Yeah.
It's Jim. You've got something playing in the background.
I don't hear it any longer, Jim.
Fixed it. Whatever it was, we got it fixed. Thank you. Sorry about that.
So let's move on into self-acceptance, one of the skills of the matrix. But first of all, of course, this is a celebration for the book launch. And I want to say a few words about the Center of Nonviolent Communication, which purpose is to share nonviolent communication with the world. And part of its function is to create certified trainers. And the way that CNVC had supported itself was through live trainings. And those pretty much have ceased since the COVID lockdowns. So the invitation is to buy copies of the book, Pathways to Nonviolent Communication, because proceeds from that book, Jim is contributing his portion, and Puddle Dancer Press is contributing their portion to CNVC. And I invite you to consider contributing on a monthly basis to CNVC. I do, it feels good. I have more enthusiasm about CNVC than I do about public radio and TV, and I tend to support them too. So my invitation is for you to consider adding them to your monthly contribution list or periodical, whichever you prefer. And I will put links to purchasing the book and contributing to CNVC in the chat. Catherine, are you here? Are you able to do that?
Yes, I can put the links in the chat.
You have those handy?
For the CNVC,
for the book
donation form and
and the book link. Great. So thanks for that. And so let's explore self-acceptance. So for a moment, let's take a few breaths, maybe 2 minutes, to self-connect, to get in touch with this self that we're considering. So my invitation is to do as little as possible. If the eyes close, that's an invitation, but it's not necessary. The invitation is to notice whatever is happening. And in particular now, notice sound. You hear the sound of a voice coming and going. You might hear some environmental sounds wherever you may be. And notice that there is the noticing. Whatever it is, I don't have a name for it exactly, but whatever it is that's noticing these sounds coming and going, that's who I really, really am. I notice thoughts come and go. Whatever it is that notices those thoughts coming and going is who I am. And as thoughts come and go, and feelings come and go, and experiences come and go, this noticing has always been here. This noticing notices river, the body, the thoughts, all of that. Notice that which notices. You may want to let your eyes open. We return to our session here. There might have been a shift in an inner experience with that self-connection. And I'm guessing from here to the end of our time together, I'll be talking about self-acceptance of River is myself, the one that you see on the screen now, the one that has the body and comes and goes. And this idea of this matrix, this skill, this list of 28 skills, which is not by any means a finite list of skills to have life work better. But the idea of naming these skills and then looking at the progression of integration, the progression of competence with these skills, I'm finding incredibly useful. Self-acceptance has been an issue for me, a big issue. I'm a suicide survivor, multiple events. So depression has been part of my structure and a great teacher for me since ever. I was raised in a Catholic Christian household. From the very beginning was given information that there's something wrong with me, there's original sin, there's some essential flaw. From my mother, I got the message that whatever I did wasn't quite good enough. I never heard, oh, great job, that's wonderful. Always, this could have been improved. From my culture, from school, from so many places, I've gotten the message and incorporated that there's improvement that needs to happen. At least that's the way I took it in order for me to be acceptable. And so the first level of self-acceptance is unskilled. I mean, the idea of self-acceptance is accepting myself, accepting oneself with unconditional caring. And the flow of competence in becoming more self-accepting, at least how it works for me, aligns with this notion of this skills matrix. It was unskilled. It wasn't until I was in my 20s when I had an idea that there was such a thing as self-acceptance. The unskilled level of self-acceptance is like a habitual, repetitive patterns of self-judgment, criticism, shame, blame, or self-aggrandizement. That wasn't my flavor. I was not so much of a self-aggrandizer, but I consistently had, there's something wrong with me, I need to do better. What's the matter with you was a common refrain I heard in my head. Then in my 20s, I got interested in finding ways to accept life better. And I begun to awaken to becoming competent that there is such a thing as self-acceptance, that that's a worthy effort, that life doesn't have to be a parade of self-criticism, even though that's a large experience of my inner world. But noticing, now I was beginning to notice self-criticism. I was beginning to realize how much it cost. And I was beginning to long for ways to improve my self-acceptance. And I found some skills. I ran into a guy named Ken Kais Jr. Actually, after looking into a program called transactional analysis and learning some skills for self-acceptance. And along in that world, I ran across the notion that there's a positive intention behind what people do. And that rested with me, that resonated with me. But I noticed that I had a barrage of self-criticism. And I found that much of the repetitive habitual thinking, I didn't feel like I had much agency in putting there. I noticed that I could continue a thought, I could continue a stream of thought, but what comes up doesn't seem to have, I don't have, to now I still don't have any control, but I do have control. I do have some agency in selecting some thoughts that are aligned with my values. And I found that using affirmations in the late 70s, early 80s, and up to this day has been really helpful in inviting the kind of thinking that aligns with what's closer to truth for me. And I've come to realize that closer to truth is that we are all beautiful, innocent beings at our nature. And NVC really helped. The concept of that everything that we do is an attempt to meet a need. Every life form, in my view, every action that any life form takes is an attempt, successful or not, to meet some life-serving need. Life energy, fuel, food, sunlight, it's really, the organism needs to be very protective. And so we don't waste energy. There's nothing that I do that's not an attempt to meet some need. Now, the embarrassing thing is that some of my strategies are very unlikely to get a need met. I'm thinking of noticing, bought a nice baking sheet, half baking sheet. And I'm married, and my wife and I have different dishwasher strategies. And I opened the dishwasher one day after getting the sheet pan, and I noticed that it was in there, and it was all blotched and stained. It has aluminum in it, and the chemicals in the dishwasher permanently stained the pan. And I noticed that I was really upset about that. I was really reactive. And then I became being self-critical. And in that moment, I noticed, aha, here I go again, that I think I should be different. I think I should have different thoughts. I think I should be more easily accepting of the situation. And just that recognition allowed me to shift into some self-empathy. Yeah, what I really love is access to resources, beauty. I love shiny things, they're beautiful, and that lost it. So that need was unmet there. And I was able to find some peace and some self-acceptance in just recognizing the need that was unmet in my reactivity. Through the years and using some affirmations regularly, I noticed that my thinking has really shifted. I no longer have the repetitive and oppressive self-criticism that I had before. In using daily affirmations to help bring habitual thinking, new thinking that's aligned with more of the truth of my being, that there is inherent value, that river is valuable. And in one of my suicidal darknesses, somewhere along the line, it occurred to me deeply. I don't think that this is an original thought. I don't know where it came from, but that it's an arrogant position to think that I should be different. For me to hold the thought that River needs to be different before he's acceptable is an arrogant thought. In other words, life wants me, life wants all of us as we are. Otherwise, we'd be different. I'd be different. Life has accepted me. I cannot refute that fact. It's crystal clear that I am the way I am, and I have a choice whether to accept it or not. And the important element for me is acceptance doesn't mean agreement. That I can accept that, I can be reactive in situations around the dishwasher. I can behave in ways that don't please me, but that I can accept that that's where I am in the moment. Or I have a brother-in-law. We differ deeply politically, and I can accept that that's his position. That acceptance doesn't mean that I agree. My acceptance means that there's not a separation, that I understand that that's his perspective. From his perspective, he's meeting needs through the way he shows up and behaves. And there's an openness. There's a less constriction in my being. Over the years in practicing, I've noticed that I've become more integrated in self-acceptance. And integration, and the level of skills that are laid out in the matrix, the pathways to liberation, are not global in my experience. I find that it's most useful to use these skills and assess my personal capabilities moment by moment, situation by situation. Look at a specific situation, and then in that situation, do I find that, oh, it's easy for me to be in a self-accepting place? Or is this a place of challenge? So the final stage is the integrated stage, and the flow of competence is the first stage. Is the unskilled stage is also can be considered as unconscious incompetence. In other words, I don't even know the skill exists, and I'm not very good at it because I don't notice it. I'm unconscious about it. Time passed, I became aware of this idea of self-acceptance, and I was consciously incompetent. So in other words, I knew about the skill, I could be aware that I wasn't so good at it. And as I practiced finding different ways, different skills to be more self-accepting, to begin to change some of the programming that wasn't working for me through affirmations or whatever else it might be for you personally, to help balance and tip the balance toward more aligned thinking and cognitive structures that support the truth that lives in your heart. That next stage is capable. In other words, I can be consciously competent around whatever the skill is, this particular skill of self-acceptance. So with a little effort, I can bring the self-acceptance back on board. I can notice if I'm critical of my brother-in-law, or if I see dog poop on the sidewalk and I become reactive about, there's a story that comes up about my neighbors in the city of Philadelphia not caring for me or being lazy or whatever the story might be. I can notice, I'm not liking that I'm running this story, and I can recognize that, yeah, I really love beauty. I really love care for one another, and I can come back into a self-acceptant mode even when I was triggered and had thoughts running that weren't aligned with my self-acceptance. And then the last stage in much of my life is unconscious competence and self-acceptance. Specific triggers can bring me into some self-criticism, but I've noticed that been working with this skill for decades, that it's very common that when I notice the thinking that coming along like I should be different. Actually, yesterday, I can't remember the exact quote, but what was the situation? It doesn't matter. The thought came in that I should be different, and the thought didn't completely finish the sentence, and I could turn the light of attention elsewhere. What I find really helpful in this aim for self-connection, self-acceptance, is to, when the self-critical thoughts arise, to just let them honk on by in the sky like geese. Like in the sky of my awareness, in the sky of my inner world, if a thought comes up, I don't need to grasp onto it. I can let it go. Another image that I find useful is when a thought comes up that's not aligned with self-care, to let it evaporate like ice on a sidewalk. Like have some benevolent, to ignore it in a benevolent way, not to push the thought away. I find that pushing it away keeps it present. That saying what we resist persists. It seems like when I resist negative self-critical thinking, I keep it there. If I can do whatever it is, it's hard to describe, to just let the thought go, let it evaporate on its own. Thoughts don't have much of a half-life. I think a half-life of a thought is about 5 seconds. So, big breath tells me that that's more than enough words. I want it to have some practice. And what I've found is that I've had a culture of criticism since I was a child, and I've been creating a culture of self-acceptance. So the idea, I want to do some practice with just exploring for yourselves, just for a few minutes in a paired breakout room. So the invitation, if you're willing to just take some time, I have a couple of questions that I'm going to invite you to explore. Let me just bring those up for you here.
River, would you like those in pairs or in triads?
Pairs.
Okay.
And if you prefer not to go into a breakout, I think what would work best, if you notice in front of my name there's an equal sign, because I'm going to stay in the large room. If you prefer not to be put in with a pair to discuss what do you do to create a culture of self-care, or what are you willing to do to create a culture of self-care for yourself, put an equal sign in front of your name. To do that renaming, if you hover your pointer device over your image, there should be a little box with 3 dots in there, and there should be a selection to rename. But I really encourage you to connect in the breakout room. And I also encourage you to follow the invitation or to follow your heart in how you want to connect and explore self-acceptance or self-care. The breakout would be 10 minutes. So we'll be breakout for 10 minutes and there'll be a 2-minute buffer. So the invitation is with your partner to just describe what you do to create a culture of self-care for yourself. I mentioned for my examples of using affirmations. Or what are you willing to do to create a culture of self-acceptance or self-care?
I have a question. Can I say it now or after the break room?
Let me hear it now.
Okay, thank you. You said the self-care and self-acceptance. In my perspective, correct me, I might take care of myself, but I don't have self-care with to feel self-care, but maybe I don't have self-acceptance. Is it any difference? You understand me?
I understand you. There is a difference, and my invitation is to focus on self-acceptance.
Yes.
They're close in my experience, but they are different. So the specific skill we're looking at right now in this session is self-acceptance. So that if there's a confusion, go there.
No, not a confusion. Can you say to us how to differentiate from your experience, from your great experience?
I'm going to leave that to you to explore yourselves, because I think each of us has our own response to that. So the idea in this pairs, and we're going to go quickly, really to how to the importance that I really want us to have time to do is to consider this idea of making an inner culture, to shift from a culture of criticism to a culture of care, whether it's a care of self-acceptance or a care of self-acceptance, or just self-care that's a broader term that might be doing practices and exercise for the body, for example. So the idea is creating a culture of acceptance versus a culture of criticism. Does that help?
Yes, help very much. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you.
So if it's not too late, it looks like it's too late. Never mind. And I'm thinking those with equal signs, I'll let you choose where to go with that. Catherine, you probably already made a decision.
Yes, we made a separate room for people who selected not to have a breakout.
Yeah, then they can choose or not to go there.
Right, you'll be invited into that, or you can just ignore the invitation and stay in this room. I do notice I've been moving the ones with equal sign, but I noticed there are some plus signs and I'm not sure what that signifies.
We were told in another group that that means you want to go to a breakout room if you put a plus in front of
Got
your
it.
name.
Yeah,
Thank
and
you.
also an A in front.
Yeah, that was
A means go.
awake. Awake. Yeah.
So A means okay, plus means okay, equals means rather not.
Okay, we're almost ready.
Nothing means okay.
Nothing means okay.
We're almost ready. And if for some reason you are left in a room, I will look and move you to another room if that happens.
I just came in, so I don't know what is the breakout room for exercise. So maybe it's not.
So for the breakout, the invitation is to take about 10 minutes to dialogue with your partner. What do you do to create a culture of self-care or self-acceptance? Or what are you willing to do to create a culture of self-acceptance?
Okay, thanks.
Okay, and then some groups, there's a group of 3. So, and then you'd like
okay.
10 minutes for that, right? And with
if it's not too late to do 8 minutes with a 120-second buffer, I prefer that.
Okay, you got it. And the rooms are opening.
Does it make sense for us to pause the recording as long as someone's taking responsibility to start it again? Actually, I take it back. I was asking Jim, and I don't want to do it without asking him. Never mind.
River, you're muted. And I'm still working on breakout rooms.
Mhm. So Jim, does it make sense to pause the recording during this time?
No, I think it's better to just let them run.
Okay.
I'm back because the person in my breakout room, Hassan, I kept saying, "Are you there? Are you there?" Was probably asleep.
Okay.
So maybe
Yeah,
if
Catherine, I was in a room with somebody with an equal sign in front of their name, Jennifer. So she didn't respond to me either.
Okay. I see another one of those. Yeah, there are a lot of equal signs. And for some reason, the breakout rooms are not showing like up for me, all of them in terms of who's in there. It'll show people, but not who they are.
Maybe you need to reclaim the host again. Something might have gotten
I'll
screwed
check
up.
that, Jim. Thank you.
I'm looking in here. It says that I'm assigned to breakout room 22. If I go back into it, maybe I'll just find that same person. Or maybe Margaret and I can be in a breakout room together. Good idea,
Sure.
Margaret. Yeah, I'm gonna check to see if the breakout room is the same one. And
Catherine, I was in a room by myself and I asked for help, but no one came.
Yeah, I asked for help too, and no one came.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No one. I can go with someone because no one was in my room either.
Okay.
Catherine, is it okay if I help with this and move people around too? while you do it?
Sure. Let me make you co-host because see what's happening on my
I can
end.
already do it. I'm just going to keep going.
Okay. Okay, because it's not showing me anyone out in room 25 or more. It's not showing me the people in there. It just gives me a number. So it's very hard for me
Gotcha.
to figure out how to amend that.
Well, maybe there aren't any more rooms, because if we have, how many people do we have?
70 some.
Oh, yeah, that would make sense. Anyway, I'm back because Hassam was still not answering when I said, one more chance.
Okay, and I will look for people with equal signs and make sure that they're not in the rooms. Again, double scan. I don't see any more. Oh, there's one. Okay.
So since we're here in the large room, I'd like to take advantage of us being together.
Okay.
Would anybody enjoy sharing what's something you do to create a culture of self-acceptance for yourself?
Yeah, I can.
Thank you, Holly.
Well, every morning I spend some time just embodying myself and being with my breath, and I'm watching my mind throughout the day, how it might automatically have its critical statements or judgmental statements, not only about myself, but about other people. And the self-accept, I'm trying to put those judgments into what the yearning is. What is my yearning? What is my need? Instead of criticizing myself for the fact that I'm criticizing, you know. Yeah, so I go to my yearning. That's what I'm doing.
And what effect have you noticed from that? Just really briefly in a sentence.
I am finding that my mind is becoming more aware of my somatic experiences, whereas I used to be totally, neck up, not aware of my body at all. And I'm noticing I'm becoming more aware of little, my throat tightening or my heart aching or things happening in my body, like a hollowness in my gut, a feeling of fear or anxiety or whatever's happening. So, or joy as well. It's not all bad. I'm noticing joy and happiness too.
Thank you, Holly. Anything anyone else does? Yeah, Anne. You're muted, as you may know.
Okay, yeah, I was trying to unmute.
I hear you now.
Good. For me, I'm participating for the second year in Tom Bond's compassion course. And I'm in a practice group every Saturday, and it's just so wonderful. I'm finding myself much more aware of how I'm interacting with, how I'm hearing people and listening, and it's just, I really see a difference so I'm participating in this whole idea of a culture of acceptance of, I think that's how you put it. Yeah.
And are you noticing a change in the narrative in your inner world, and since being involved with that, or some other practices you've been doing?
A little, not a great deal.
But you're noticing some.
I am.
Yeah.
Sometimes I wake, like this morning, I woke up and I thought, I feel really connected to myself, my soul, and with others. I had and I think it has to do, well, anyway, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone have something you're willing to do to promote a culture of self-acceptance? Yes, Tara.
Hi. So, okay, one of the things I do, I don't know if it's willing and already. So I listen to Michael Singer. He's the Untethered Soul guy. And it's about mindfulness, Catherine. And so I listen to him a lot to just kind of get that real, mindfulness, separation piece in my head about like really just being able to watch my feelings and watch my thoughts. And he's really radical. I mean, I'm an old NVC person from way back. And so, it's all about needs, identifying needs. We have these feelings that I think are just like a compass to guide us to, what we're needing. And Michael Singer seems to be like, he's not even into this whole thing about needs. So I'm like willing now to question, when I identify a need, I'm like looking at it and questioning, is this a true, real need, or is this coming from one of my stories? My old, like River, when you were mentioning about your old program stories, is this coming from that, or is this coming really from, do I really need, like I'm just willing to start questioning even needs. So
Yeah.
that's kind of where I'm at now.
Yeah. And then for me, holding that a need is something that every person on the planet has, that helps me differentiate from like a small self need to a universal need.
Well, for me, it's even beyond that. It's not, it's even like no needs, like, because that's how I've always held it, that these are universal needs, human universal needs. And now I'm even questioning that.
Yeah, I get that you're questioning the needs. So I see a couple of hands. Margaret?
Yeah, I do a lot of the Tara Brach meditations and practice, like just put my hands on my heart when I hear something painful and breathing into it and more or less saying this is difficult, and like having that little bit of self-compassion, and that connects me with myself and calms me down to be able to look at maybe the other person's feelings and needs as well as my own.
Thank you. And Sarah Joy?
Well, I do both a meditation practice and a gratitude practice. And the gratitude practice I've been doing consistently for a while. So what's new is sitting quietly with myself and really checking into my feelings or needs, or just sitting and knowing that I am being held by the universe and that I can relax into that support and just feel the possibilities, or feel safe, or feel, depending on what I'm needing. And I sometimes do some chanting, or just some very quiet receiving of guidance while I'm in that place. And so just trying to do that on a daily basis, at least 5 minutes and sometimes 10 minutes has been really helpful for me.
Oh, beautiful. Yeah, I can't emphasize enough how important gratitude seems to be in not only deepening my self-acceptance, but broadening it. There's something about noticing growth. For example, I noticed that I selected the wrong document earlier that said self-care rather than self-acceptance for the breakout. And I noticed that, I wish that would have been different. There wasn't a self-critical noise coming in, and that didn't even register. When I was writing myself a note during the breakout about that incident to bring it up. I noticed in my mind there was the beginning of a what's wrong with you, an old familiar tape, and I noticed it, and I let it peter out, and I celebrated that I noticed it, and I celebrated its petering out. And I do that as often as possible, and I feel like it's tossing a stone in a pond, that there's this ripple, this resonant effect in changing the strength of lowers the strength of programming that I don't want to live with any longer, and strengthening the alignment of self-acceptance. Hiba, I see your hand is up.
Yes, I love your word, the culture of self-acceptance. It landed on me, a culture. It's a culture. we need to build it, يعني not something make it a once, okay? I need to accept my jackal or the يعني anything on me like jackal. I need to accept it and know to how to deal with it. This is acceptance for me, يعني, or one of the ones. And self-awareness. When I self-awareness, I get self-awareness, I more accept myself. But I have a question. What is the relation from your great experience between self-acceptance and the self-acceptance of the beloved ones, especially the beloved ones, the one that it's important for me? From your experience, from your great experience.
It's such a personal question. I mean, I'm torn, Hiba. Our acceptance of of our deep self, I think, is a personal journey that I'd like to save that. If you don't mind me not addressing that question, I'd rather keep the focus on the pathways to liberation and the self-acceptance of the little one, so to say. Is that okay with you?
Yes, it's okay with me. It resonates with me because the old programming.
So I heard you say yes. You're breaking.
Self-accepting myself.
You're breaking up a bit, Hiba. I'm going to go on to Karen. Okay, it's hard to hear. Yeah, Karen.
Yes, thank you very much. I appreciate, Hiva, what you say about accepting your jackal. That's useful, or a useful reminder in this context. And I also appreciate this culture of self acceptance versus a culture of self-criticism. And in our little group, we were sharing that, which is very helpful. I'll just share my experience. I was noticing that I've shifted because of where I'm at, which is a difficult spot. I've shifted to a very avoidant style. It's not my normal style. And in the night, then, so I have self-acceptance all day long because I've avoided everything. But then just before bed comes all the list of things I avoided. It comes this big jackal voice that says, you're a bad person. You haven't done all these things. And my solution generally is to do a few of them in desperation. Send a quick email, send a quick text so that I can feel better about myself, And I'm thinking that is a place I'm willing to cultivate more self-acceptance. That's like a moment where in my current day-to-day existence, that's a moment where it would be very rich to be able to create that culture. And I guess I wonder aloud now if you have any thoughts about particular ways to do that in such a moment, or to say to yourself.
Something does come up, and I'll get with you in a second, Kevin. So for me, noticing and really taking to deep heart the notion that recognizing that everything that I do, everything that anybody does is an attempt to meet a need, and hold that as a possibility. I mean, it's not a truth. I can't prove it, but I experiment and test it daily, and it seems to hold up. And from there, recognizing that I might have done X that didn't meet that I felt badly about. And it's hard. So that was my best. My snapping back at my spouse in that moment was the best I had to support connection, or to support ease, or something like that. It was probably ease, some of those things. I'm speaking in generalities, not a specific. But here's the point is that was my best. It wasn't the best I think I can do. But for me to accept that, in that moment, my best for getting my needs met was this, and it landed with a thud. It didn't make it more likely for the need to get met. But for the resources on board in that instant, that was my best. And just to surrender to, yeah, that's your best, River. And next time, is there a possibility of having an alternative? and perhaps doing a simulation, like playing it again, or before sleep, reviewing. I sometimes review my day and notice things that I wish would have gone more gracefully. And then imagine them going more gracefully, or just asking deep wisdom. Is there a possibility for me in that situation to do something that's going to be more likely to elicit connection so that we'll naturally give to one another? So I find that a useful practice in going to sleep or even waking in the morning. So I hope that addresses it. I'm going to move on to Kevin.
Hi, thank you so much. Yeah, so I just wanted to just offer a comment, and it's really right in line with what you're just talking about. You started off talking about, and I have my own wording for this, so I'm coming back to mine, that like all of my actions or reactions and yours and everybody else's have good intent, and that's very, very helpful for me to have self-compassion. And I was just really struck when you were talking earlier about how you gave this image of letting a notion or a thought, or if it's critical or something, just kind of lay on the sidewalk and evaporate. And what that took me to was just thinking about how in my practice, which is not perfect, but practice, I found that when I can go and welcome that part, like if I'm impatient, if I'm reactive, if I'm avoidant, that's very much my thing, that if I really welcome that and see, or at least try to believe that it has a good intention, that very often that's a trailhead, that helps me to go toward, or it kind of shows me toward what it wants. And then I'll wrap up in just a second to say, I completely understand too how sometimes that part's strategy was absolutely the wrong thing it gave me the opposite of what I was hoping for, but really welcoming everything. And I'll just wrap up by saying that really scares me very often, because what I've learned all through my whole life is, in spoken and unspoken, is ignore those bad things. I have to cover them up. I even called it bad just now. It's bad, ignore it, make it go away, be a better person. So it's kind of scary to think about leaning into, I'm really angry and I want to yell at somebody, or whatever those things are. So I just wanted to offer that as a thought, and thank you. I'll keep listening.
Yeah, thanks for sharing, Kevin. And one thing that I want to say, I'll get to you in a second, Margaret, is that for me, the distance between what I've done, doing what I did, and doing my best, which is actually what I did, and doing the best I think I can, that's where suffering can lie. If I'm critical and I think that I should have done the best I thought I could do, I'm going to suffer because I have attachment to doing it differently. For me to surrender and accept that this is what I did, and then make provisions to make choices that have an impact closer to what I'm longing for, that helps me. Yes, Mark.
Hi. Yeah, no, the last two speakers really, well, all of the people that spoke resonated with me, but it came to mind about Marshall saying, enjoy the jackal show. So that sometimes we learn things from what our jackals are saying, if we really listen to them. And so it again, leaning into those what we call negative or bad parts of us, or the parts we don't like, because again, we have to accept ourselves wholly, all parts of ourselves, for self-acceptance. Because if we're trying to push parts away, we are not being accepting. So that wholeness that we learn from every part of us, even those parts we think we don't like, I think is very important. So thank you for reminding me of that, everybody.
Thank you, Margaret. So I've just posted in the chat some resources. Marshall wrote some affirmations back, I'm guessing in the 70s, 7 affirmations that are aligned with some of the thinking that he wanted to emphasize. And I've put together some affirmations or some reminders to help align my thinking with nonviolent communication principles. And there were influential affirmations from the Science of Happiness, Ken Kais Jr., that I've modified slightly that aligns more with the language of NVC. So those are resources that you might find useful, aligned with this skill of self-acceptance. I've also posted a link to for feedback, if there's feedback about this session or the event, this event of the Matrix of Skills in general, please use that link for feedback. I'd love to get feedback to hear what worked, what didn't work. And there's a link in there for CNVC for, oh, actually the link is to register for this event if you haven't, because then those that have registered will have the opportunity to link into the recordings if you would choose. So if you haven't registered, the link is in the chat to do that. I'm suspecting there's one more voice. Is there a voice that we haven't heard that's just about to come forth? I invite you to unmute yourself and go.
So I'll unmute myself and thank you so much, River, for doing this. And I'm really appreciating the heartfelt way you have shared it so personally and so informatively. And I feel tears in my eyes loving you, my brother.
Thank you, Jory. We're about to wrap up, but I'd like to hear two voices, 10 seconds or fewer each, of something you might be taking away from our session today. I'll take the first voices. Really encourage folks that haven't spoken, but if you've spoken, that's not a barrier for me. What are you taking away? What might you take away from today?
I liked your idea of celebrating when we see a critical thing and manage to let it go. I think that's so important to keep applauding ourselves.
Thank you for underlining that, Leslie. I really appreciate it.
Go ahead, Tara.
Oh, this is Tara. Just wanted to say, River, I really appreciated how you set up the framework of it was so personal and how you got programmed. And I just thought that was a lot of courageous vulnerability that I really connected with, and I appreciate that a lot.
Thanks for saying so. It encourages me to continue to be self-revelatory. It's self-serving and it's also easier because I know my experience.
Exactly.
I just appreciate the reminder of that compassion and gentleness towards my critical self, that really that part of me is about strategy, and it's about what is the need underneath that strategy, and how can I meet the unmet need that developed that strategy.
So glad you brought that up, because it reminded me of a strategy that I did some years ago. I felt like my inner critic was so relentless and so cruel and never gave me any kind of support. But I understood that that it was trying to make me improve. It was really on my side, but it was ineffective. And I had a furious discussion saying, listen, if you don't do some things that help, that support me, I'm just shut up. I'm not listening to you anymore. You offer some things that are useful, or I'm not paying attention. And somehow that attitude shifted.
River, I'd just like to thank you for demonstrating living the integrated part of the matrix when some groups were breakout rooms didn't help, and you recognized there was disconnection between people, and the techs were trying to do the best they could, but you ended up opening the main room to be a breakout room, which I thought was very compassionate of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Do we have any? Am I supposed to wrap up? We're coming up to the top of the hour. I can announce. Is there something? Is there a wrap up I'm supposed to be doing here?
Basically what you put in the chat, River, just to, and we can put it in again, the link for getting your book if you haven't done that yet. And I will put that in there. And then also you want, and then there's a link to the, we'll put again, the link to the support
Feedback?
For the feedback form, and
Mhm.
also the support to CNVC.
Yeah, just an invitation to support CNVC. I find that I really enjoy seeing the statement that I got from my monthly contribution, and if it can be added to your list of worthy recipients, please do. I know that the list seems endless sometimes, but I don't know of a strategy that is more likely to bring world peace. As slow as it may be coming, I don't know of a better method for creating the likelihood of connection. There might be some as good, but I don't know of a better one. So our next presentation is going to be from Patricia Iwanowski. Hope I'm saying that close. Patricia, are you on our screen somewhere?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, I see you. I see you.
Yeah,
Nice to see you.
Iwanski.
Iwanski.
Yeah.
Thank you. And what part of the world are you in?
Arizona,
Okay.
US. Yeah.
Well, I feel like that might be it. I'm on the top of the hour. So thank you, everyone, for caring enough to spend your time to become more skillful at creating compassion, self-acceptance, and that can spring to accepting the rest of life. And I'm signing off. A deep bow. Thank you so much for being with me.
Thank you, River.
Thanks, River.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Really happy that you're here. And I'm going to stop the recording for just a moment so that I can restart it again.